Well, throughout this campaign, I've said that the new Prime Minister's sole economic priority must be to bear down ruthlessly on inflation and support people with their bills. Now, I'm simply not going to promise anything that undermines my ability to deliver on that. And I get that alternative plans of permanent tax cuts funded by borrowing may sound attractive at first. But if they risk stoking inflation and actually do nothing to help poorer people and pensioners, then they actually are going to be bad for everyone. And ultimately, governing is about choosing. And I think people know that if something sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
We know the energy price cap is due to go up on Friday. Labour and many energy bosses are calling for it to be frozen. People are frankly terrified about how they're going to afford to live over this winter. You don't support that freeze, I understand, but what concrete measures do you have in mind to actually help people with this? What are you going to do about the price of energy?
Well, as Chancellor, I introduced a windfall tax on the energy companies because I believe that is the fair and right thing to do in these circumstances. And I announced support for people this autumn and winter. But the situation has got worse since then. So as Prime Minister, I would go further. I'd cut VAT on energy bills to provide some help to everyone. But I want to provide direct financial assistance to two other groups of people, those on the lowest incomes and pensioners, because those people will need extra help this autumn and winter. And I know things are difficult and I want them to be reassured that with me as Prime Minister, they will get the help that they need.
People are trying to budget now, though. As you say, the situation has changed a lot. Can you give us any more specific details about the kind of support you would offer to the most vulnerable?
Well, I've set out a clear framework for how to provide that support. I would cut VAT off energy bills to coincide with the increase in the price cap. That's something we can do very quickly. But beyond that, for two groups of people, for pensioners and for those on the lowest incomes, I will make sure that they get direct extra financial support over the autumn and winter to help them with those bills, because I know this is the number one concern people have. My approach is the right one. It provides direct help to the most vulnerable in our society and doesn't do things that risk making the situation worse. And actually, permanent tax cuts funded by borrowing may sound attractive. But if they stoke inflation and do nothing to help these groups of people who I know need help, then actually no one benefits from that. And that's why I think my plan is the right one, my approach is the right one, and as Prime Minister, I can deliver that for the British people.
On Monday, nearly 1,300 migrants arrived across the Channel. Seems that the threat of being deported to Rwanda isn't working. What's your response to that and what needs to be done about it?
Well, earlier in this campaign, I talked about some of the emergencies facing our country, and illegal migration is one of the ones that I listed that I would tackle as a priority as Prime Minister, because I think it's wrong. And I came here, or my family came here, because our country has a proud history of welcoming migrants. But that has to be done legally. Has to be done fairly. And when people are exploiting the system, that's wrong and it must be stopped. I've set out a detailed plan for how to get to grips with it. It involves removing the European definition of asylum, moving to a different international definition that will help us remove people. I will do whatever it takes to make the Rwanda plan work, because we must have control of our borders, and as Prime Minister, that's what I will deliver.
Latest forecast suggesting inflation could reach 18% next year. You previously said that we can take measures to control inflation. You've talked about how Liz Truss is going to add to inflation, but what concrete measures can you tell us about that you would bring in to actually curb inflation?
Well, I think we need to let the Bank of England get on with its job with interest rates, and I'm worried, quite frankly, by reports from others that they want to curb the independence of the Bank of England. I think that would be a mistake, and I think it would spook international investors into the United Kingdom. It would be bad for all of us. Secondly, I want to make sure that we increase the supply of things. If you want to bring the price down of them, that means moving people off welfare and into work to ease some of the pressures in our labour market. It means increasing the supply of homegrown energy and food to reduce inflationary pressures there, and embarking on a big programme of energy efficiency to help people insulate their homes, which reduces their bills and helps us get to net zero and increases our energy security. But last but not least, we can't put fuel on the fire, and that's why I'm worried about plans that would pump tens of billions of pounds of borrowed money into an economy at a time when inflation and interest rates are already rising. I think that's a big gamble. I don't want to put fuel on the fire. I don't think that's the right approach. I think it's risky, and it's not something I will do as Prime Minister.
Did you do enough to control inflation when you were Chancellor?
Well, of course, when I was Chancellor, I was also dealing with a pandemic, and people will remember it's probably the first time that they got to know who I was at the beginning of the pandemic, and I'm proud of my record because we were forecast to have unemployment spiralling into the millions, and because of the interventions that I put in place, I managed to safeguard our economy through the biggest shock it had experienced in 300 years, and actually we're in more resilient shape now as a result of the actions I took. But now, we do have to make sure that we bring inflation down, which is my priority, and we support the most vulnerable with the cost of living this autumn and winter. That's my plan, and if I'm elected as Prime Minister, that's what I'll deliver.
And can I just ask you one very final question just for the pool? I mean, people are very worried about what they're going to do this winter. We've talked about the energy price cap, inflation and so on. Energy chiefs saying this race is going on too long. We need a Prime Minister in place now who can take decisions this country needs. Should you not be standing aside for the good of the country?
I'm going out and about across the country talking to our members about my plan because I believe it's the right plan for our country. And it's a resonating message with people everywhere I go. I'm doing multiple events, as you can see here today. And I know that I can act very quickly if I'm selected as Prime Minister. People saw that in the pandemic. I had to move very fast to help get our country through some very difficult times. I will do that again if I'm Prime Minister. People have seen my record. They know that I've got the experience. They know I've got the ability to help get the country through difficult times. And at the moment, I'm focused relentlessly on making sure that my plan is the one that carries the most weight in the country.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.